two cars here in turn 4. He'd been running very well. He was running right with Bobby Rahal. They were having a good little dice there for 13th position, and Dario a little unlucky. He was just split by the leader right before the crash. Rahal got away with it. He was still ahead of the race leader as the yellow flag came out. He's able to go on around, and he is still on the lead lap. So Dario now an uphill task, starting from 13th and a lap down. But as you say, Mark Blundell doing a super job. He was running along there nicely, right behind Gilles de Ferran before that pit stop, who in turn was right behind Raoul Boisel. And we're looking again at this replay. We can see they're going into the top of the screen. Third position there is Greg Moore, the race leader. The top of the screen is Fangio. He loses it on his own. Gorta Salas looks to go to the outside. No room there, is there? And Greg Moore squeaking through on the inside, as we see.
But Salas had no option then to take the outside route, because he was already there, wasn't he? He had no way he could go to the inside, because the way that Fangio started to spin. So Gualta did all that he could there, but in the end getting squashed up against the wall in his car. Looks as though he's been taken away from the car now and to the medical centre. But let's just hope that it is a case of whiplash and nothing else. Not too serious for the very friendly Brazilian. There is a view of that remarkable medical centre they have on site at every track, and top orthopedic surgeons here as well if necessary. Milwaukee, and the situation remains the same. The yellow flag still flying at the moment after the accident to Fangio and Salas, but the clear-up operation getting towards completion now. Tracy is our race leader ahead of Guterman and Greg Moore. Interesting, Jeremy, to see that we've got 3 Mercedes-Benz powered cars leading the field at the moment. They really seem, the last 2 races, they really seem to have come on strong, don't they?
They certainly have. Tremendous work there by Ilmore Engineering. Brixworth, Northamptonshire, of course, just up the road from Northampton, where the Ford Cosworth engines are originated, and a real hive of activity there in central Northamptonshire. And yeah, as you say, Paul Morgan and Mauro Ilian and the people at Ilmore done a phenomenal job with that Mercedes-Benz engine. They're getting very good fuel economy. They're very, very reliable, touch wood. And yeah, they're the engine to beat at the moment. It seems they've been fast here all weekend.
Now, we're on lap number 123. That gives us 77 to go. It's going to be tight on a fuel to make it through without stopping again, but maybe it could just be possible. You're just looking at the moment about the stats for the Penske team, looking for that 100th victory today. It's a remarkable story of success, isn't it? The Penske team in the kart series in the past. Of course, he did Formula 1 for a little while as well during the 70s. But has concentrated on the kart series in recent times, and with a great deal of success. Even if they went through last year without a win, they really have come back to form in fine style this year. We've got just 1 lap to go to the green flag, we're being told, so we're almost there to get this race underway. Now they're going to have to switch their fuel settings now. They've been running around on a fuel setting in the car that is allowing for the yellow flag, that runs at about 88% mixture. That means they run as economically as possible behind the pace car. They've now got to decide what setting to put that fuel meter on. There's a switch in the car that the driver will put the fuel on, and it will depend on what he's told from the pits. But they're going to have to be careful. If they want to try and run all the way through on green flag to the checker flag, they're going to have to run the car with quite a lean fuel mixture.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that nobody came into the pits perhaps under that last stop there. The pace car is pulling out in front of us. Paul Tracy stops his weaving just in time to get on the throttle hard through turns 3 and 4. He got a clear lead coming off the 4th turn there, as is Jimmy Vasser is challenging Greg Moore for 3rd position.
Moore, as Vasser tries to get past him, doesn't quite make it. Andretti now has the chance to go past Vasser. Michael Andretti on the outside trying to get past the red car of Jimmy Vasser. He does it, but watch out for Carpentier. Carpentier on the inside of Vasser, and Vasser suddenly finds his whole world's gone away from him as he drops 3 places in one go. And as they come out of turn 4, he was in 4th position behind the yellow flag. He's dropped down to 6th position now, and Jimmy Vasser loses out to both Michael Andretti and Patrick Carpentier. But watch out for Andretti, because he is now in 4th position, and throughout this race so far, he's been the one that's been doing the overtaking. He's 5 times the race winner here, an absolutely remarkable run of success, which included the race victory last year. Before that, he won it in 1992, in 91, in 1987, and in 1986, and he's now chasing after the former leader, Greg Moore. Meanwhile, Paul Tracy is just storming away up front once again.
Checking out, isn't he? He's pulling away rapidly, a good half a second a lap there. The gap already well over 2 seconds, and we've only done 3 laps since the green. 22.0 that last lap, 21.7 I noticed was the lap before, and he was just making full use of that clear track, trying to get some clear air between himself and Gugelmin for when they do come up to traffic. It seems from the early part of this race, Tracy's car perhaps not quite so good in traffic. That's when these other guys close in. We'll see what he can do now with a clear run ahead of him.
On board with Bobby Rahal, he's down in 12th position. Dario Franchitti is one place behind him in 13th, and then Alex Zanardi running 4th. Just shows you when the car's not working well, it doesn't matter how hard you drive it, you just cannot get up into the top 10 or into the top 6 if the car's not working. Last time out in Gateway, Zanardi did a great job to fight his way back up through the field, but it's not working for him on this occasion.
No, he struggled at Nazareth, didn't he? Qualifying down in the 20s there, and really not much of a better weekend here. Of course, we talked about a little bit earlier on, a bit of an altercation between himself and Paul Tracy yesterday. Some bad blood there between those two, almost fisticuffs after the practice session yesterday morning, and they were pulled apart and not happy. I guess one was complaining, the other was holding him up on the racetrack during the practice session. Pretty silly, really. I think just a give and take on this sort of a racetrack. You tend to get very, very close on this racetrack, and you have incidents. And it's just a question of making the most of it and not getting involved in anything undue. So interesting that, but Paul Tracy, he's got his own back now. He's out leading the race, and Alex Zanardi back in 14th place.
Concentrating on Bobby Rahal a little bit at the moment, and that's understandable.
Crash again, Max Papis.
We've got a crash, same place, just a bit further down the start-finish straight, and it's Max Papis this time, who has crashed into the wall on the exit of turn 4. The Italian, in his first full season of the championship, he gets out of the car. That's good to see after the earlier crash, and we've had several cars. It's a total now of 5 cars off at that particular point on the racetrack, and Max Papis is the latest on lap number 133. Now then, this is going to be interesting. With the pit lane will be closed for a moment or two under this yellow flag. Are we going to see people taking advantage of this to come in and then go to full rich mixture? This is the replay. Let's see what happened to Max. He lost it. The back end just got away from him, and then the flash fire in the back part of the car as the gearbox and engine oil caught fire, and everybody else managed to avoid it. Thankfully, nobody else was tangled up in the incident, but a fairly major crash for Papis.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at that one, but I heard the bang. I thought, what's that? I looked out the window, and there's this flash of quick, as you say, flash fire there, and Max Papis able to get out of the car right away. That's extremely good news. A rear end impact there. We talked about it in St. Louis as Max gives a wave to the crowd there, and shame for Max. He's doing a nice job. He was running in 17th place. He was only a couple of laps down, and was really doing a nice job. And here comes Paul Tracy into the pits. We thought there might be pit stops, and here is Paul Tracy leading the way.
So Tracy into the pits. This will be the last round of pit stops, because there's just some 66 laps to go, and that will be able to run all the way through to the checker flag. So this is the last one. Penske have done a great job so far. Can they do it again, chasing that 100th race victory? This team is so pumped up to try and achieve that result here today. Away goes Tracy. He lights up the rear tyres, but he didn't get out ahead, and it's interesting. It looks as though a couple of the other guys have gone for short stops, just perhaps putting in a bit of fuel maybe, and perhaps not putting on tyres as well, because Gugelmin and Andretti have managed to come out ahead of Paul Tracy. This is going to be a fascinating run, and Greg Moore hasn't come in at all. He's still out there behind the pace car, and he's hoping to make it through to the checkered flag on the amount of fuel already in the car. I guess with the Penske of Tracy, it's been so quick that they're hoping he's going to be able to overtake, running the engine full rich, and be able to get up through the field and overtake the leaders. But what a battle we've now got set towards the end of this race.
That's going to be very interesting indeed. I don't know, they're going to be struggling to get to the finish here, I think, without another yellow or so. Here's another replay of that crash. We'll see on the right-hand side of the screen. There goes Max Papis, just loses the back end of the car, tail end into the wall. And we talked about it in St. Louis, how much work they've done to try and protect the driver in just the event of that kind of accident, a rear-on impact, where the gearbox hits the wall first, and the loads are transmitted through the back of the car, and the softest part, of course, is the driver. So they put more absorbent material between the seat backs and the driver's back itself, and it's certainly, I think, been extraordinarily beneficial this year. We've seen several people walk away from that kind of an impact. Gualtasalas, of course, he didn't go in tail end first, did he? He was taken in front end, really through no fault of his own, of course. And we still have no word yet on Gualtasalas. We hope he's okay. But great to see that Max Papis able to hop out of that car as if nothing had happened. And that was a heavy impact. Let me tell you, that would have been at least 150 miles an hour and significant G-forces there. And Max able to hop right out and wave to the crowd.
That crowd on that grandstand's getting quite a dramatic view this afternoon, that's for sure. Michel Jourdain was the first to go off there. Parker Johnston was in fact down at the other end of the racetrack, but a very similar looking accident. Then we had the accident to Gualtasalas and Juan Fangio, and now Max Papis, of course, has backed it into the wall in virtually the same place. Greg Moore continues to lead the cars behind the pace car at the moment, and with the various cars coming into the pit lane, Jimmy Vasser has now popped up into second position, and Raul Boesel third, and Mark Blundell is now fourth in the lineup. He also has decided to stay out there and to risk running through to the checkered flag, and they'll all be watching to see how long this yellow flag lasts. The guys who haven't made a pit stop will be hoping this yellow flag lasts several laps, and then they might just be able to squeeze their fuel all the way to the end of the race. But it could be a similar situation to what we saw in Rio, Jeremy, with Bobby Rahal running out of fuel with just a lap to go.
Oh dear, yeah, there's going to be some cross fingers there in the pit lane and in the cockpits these next few laps. Of course, the top five then, just to recap: Greg Moore, as you say, Jimmy Vasser, Raul Boesel, Mark Blundell and Bobby Rahal. None of them came into the pits. The other 7 cars on the lead lap did so. That's Gugelmin, Andretti, Tracy, Pruitt, De Ferran and Carpentier. Oh, and Moreno, I beg your pardon. So interesting strategies there. Some of the people changing tyres, others not during that stop, and a major shuffle around. A good stop, excellent stop there by the Pac West team. And Paul Tracy's team took a little bit longer with their stop, and he's back down in 8th place. He's got a lot of work to do, hasn't he? He
has. I think we just heard that Gugelmin indeed didn't put tyres on. All they did was just put some fuel in. So that was how they've managed to get him ahead of Paul Tracy in the running. The question is, will those tyres hold up for him all the way through to the end of the race as well? He could end up losing some performance, and that could drop him down the order. Just looking down to position 12 there, the top 12 all scoring points in this championship. Roberto Moreno is in 12th, Dario Franchitti just behind him in 13th, Zanardi 14th, then it's PJ Jones, Brian Herter and Hiro Matsushita. That's about it, I think, that we have still running in the race.
Yes, we've got 2 Toyotas are still running there. Hiro's 4 laps down. But he's actually been doing a pretty good job this afternoon. He was running pretty strongly early on. A couple of times he's had to get right off line, picked up dirt on his tyres, and that's cost him valuable time as he has to scrub that dirty rubber off the tyres and get going again. You know, we talked about that, whether people came into the pits or not, or whether they changed tyres or not during that pit stop. They'd only done half a dozen laps of green flag running since the previous pit stop, so as far as tyre wear concerned, fairly negligible. The only concern, of course, is whether or not they pick up any debris from that accident.
Yes, that's right, and there was certainly a fair bit of it flying around in the air when Papis backed into the wall that hard. They're certainly cleaning up things very quickly, though it shouldn't be too long before we get this underway again. But we're now coming round to complete lap number 140 at the end of this lap. That would give them 60 laps to go to take it right through to the 200 miles. And it is going to be very entertaining to see whether they can hold on to that. But don't forget, Tracy, certainly in the early part of his stints, has had a performance advantage, so he may even be able, like we saw in Gateway, just to be able to pick them off one by one and work his way to the front without really having to worry about the fact that he spent the time in the pit lane. Right, now that is the interesting thing. Of course, when he's pulled away in the past after a green flag, he's had nice clear road ahead of him. Now, of course, he's mired back in the pack. There's a lot of cars ahead of him. There's a couple of lap cars in there as well. I think he's about 10th in line from the front, so a lot of work to do for Paul Tracy, and there's some pretty quick motor cars in front of him, including, of course, right ahead of him there, as we're on board with Michael Andretti. He's never an easy man to get around, particularly when he has such a good car on a racetrack like this. These two have had some wonderful battles on the ovals before. I can't wait till it goes green again. Yeah, that's right. It should be quite something as they race for victory here at Milwaukee, and Michael and all of them really looking, well, both of Andretti and Tracy looking for new records here. Andretti looking to make it 6 wins here at Milwaukee, and Tracy looking to make it 4 wins in a row this season. And of course, that would really give him an extremely comfortable championship lead. He already has a comfortable championship lead over Alex Zanardi, and his lead at the moment is some 19 points over Alex Zanardi. Scott Pruitt lies third in the championship, another 6 points behind. Michael Andretti is fourth in the series, so he could really do with a victory here. But even if he were to win the race, Michael Andretti, and Paul Tracy not to finish, then Andretti would still be some 12 points behind the Penske driver. So with Tracy in this sort of form on the oval tracks, don't forget, we're coming to the end of the oval